We have also seen some forms of knowledge, and the most important knowledge categories are two in number. One is the tacit knowledge, which can also be called by the name informal knowledge or implicit knowledge. We have seen this topic, still we are going through the points once again. This exists within a human being. We have seen that tacit knowledge is something which is inside the human brain, which cannot be expressed and which is attained by personal experience. So it is personified because it belongs to some person that may be different from other persons. So it is difficult to express formally. We cannot express it in text format, or it cannot be recorded or communicated. It is again difficult to communicate or share, and it is developed from experience, action, subjective insight, etc. So that type of knowledge is known as tacit knowledge. It is also required for problem solution. This knowledge is also required for problem solution. So this is one form. And another form is explicit, which corresponds to formal or external to human being. External means it can be recorded or expressed formally, from where which can read out knowledges and gathered into a brain. So it is expressible or recordable, which is existing outside the human being. So it is shareable to every human being. Suppose we have a statement or true statement, truth about earth or something like, or sun, etc., which can be made available to each and every person who is reading that recorded fact. So it is shareable and it can be taken into one's mind. Such knowledges are called as explicit knowledge. It can be shared, copied, processed and stored. And they are drawn from the artifact of some type as a principle. Artifact we have seen already. Artificially generated facts. It can be generated from some principle based on some scientific experiments and something, some procedures, some processes, concepts, etc. They are all recorded facts. So they are called as explicit. So there are two types of knowledges: implicit knowledge and explicit knowledge. Then we have a framework for knowledge representation. Computer, we know that a computer requires a well-defined problem description to process, and it should also have a well-defined acceptable solution. Then only we can solve a problem. To collect fragments of knowledge, because knowledge is always accumulated from all angles. From all angles we will be getting knowledge. Either it can be tacit knowledge, implicit knowledge, or explicit knowledge, or strategic knowledge. Any kind of knowledge can be gathered. So they are called as fragments. For doing or collecting such knowledge, we have to formulate a description in our spoken language, and that description has to be converted into formal language for the computers to understand. So the spoken language belongs to the human being and the formal language belongs to the computer machines. So a transcription or translation of these two should happen. Should happen in both ways. It can happen in both ways. It depends on who is using the knowledge fragment. If computer is using the knowledge fragment, then it has to be a translation from spoken language to formal language. If human beings are using the fragment of knowledge, then it should be a translation from formal language to spoken language. So for computers to use some language fragments, the language expressed in a spoken language should be converted into formal language, because computing machines can understand only formal language or machine languages. Computer then uses some algorithm to compute an answer based on these knowledges. So the computing machines will be using knowledge fragments which are represented in formal language. Again, we can represent this by two levels. This is the separating line which is in violet color. One is informal area and the other is formal area. So we have a problem and we have some solution for the problem. We have to solve this problem to get this solution, and this problem is being represented in a computing machine understandable form, which is the formal one, and it is being converted into output. Still it is in the formal language, which is not understandable by human being. So this output has to be converted into a solution which is in informal language. So this is how the knowledge representation framework works between informal and formal representations. This belongs to the area of human being, while this belongs to the area of machines. So both two-way conversions happens here. A problem is converted into or represented in machine readable format, which is processed for generating some output. This output has to be converted or interpreted into a solution which is understandable by the human being. So this is the formal area and this is the informal area. So the steps are: informal formalism or format of the problem takes place first. So first it is in the area of the human being, which is called as informal area. It is represented formally and the computer produces an output. So these step 2 are in the formal area, which is the area of the machine. This output can then be represented in an informally described solution that user understands, and this output is again represented into informal language so that human being can understand that. The problem solving requires formal knowledge representation and conversion of informal knowledge to a formal knowledge. That is the conversion of implicit knowledge to explicit knowledge. So we can observe that the knowledge representation problem is mainly due to the mismatch between human memory and the computer memory. All the storage problems exist due to the difference of human memory and computer memory. We can call the representation of knowledge as knowledge base. It is also a collection of knowledges, and the operations that we use for manipulating this stored knowledge as inference engine. So the inference engine is a program which acts on this knowledge or the knowledge base. So let us see what to represent. We have seen that already. We are storing facts, and these facts are known as a knowledge at the knowledge level. We are having two levels. One is the knowledge level and the other is the symbolic level. These two have a these two have a direct mapping. because each knowledge in the knowledge level will be having a corresponding symbolic representation in the symbolic level. We'll be representing this knowledge using symbols, so it is called as symbolic level. So in a simple format, we can say that the inference engine programs can access the knowledge base if the values are stored or arranged, organized in a systematic way of facts which are grouped according to the similarity of properties with respect to a set of objects. If some objects are having similar properties, then they can be arranged as a column or as a row. In that way, we can organize the memory or storage area so that the inference engine can somehow manage these knowledges in a simple form.